Everyone at the party froze. The billionaire smiled as his guests laughed, pointing at the woman he once abandoned. "This is my childless ex-wife," he announced loudly. "She could never give me a family." But what neither he nor the crowd knew was that the truth was just minutes away. She stood there, quiet, gripping a small envelope in her hand. She didn't come to fight. She came for answers. Because what the billionaire didn't know was that the reason she had no children was written inside that envelope. 3 years earlier, she left their marriage heartbroken, believing she was the problem. Doctor after doctor told her she couldn't conceive. She cried for nights while he blamed her for everything. But something strange happened a month after their divorce, something that led her to return to this party today. As the billionaire cut the cake, ready to show off his perfect new family, she stepped forward. She opened the envelope, and his smile vanished instantly. Because the DNA result inside didn't belong to her, it belonged to him, and it revealed a secret he never expected anyone to uncover. How does a man's cruelty become his undoing? And what truth could shatter everything he'd built in front of 200 witnesses? To understand this, we need to go back to the beginning of a marriage that was doomed from the start. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comment. Michael Okonkwo was a self-made billionaire. At 38 years old, he owned a chain of luxury hotels across West Africa, drove the most expensive cars, and lived in a mansion that had been featured in architecture magazines. He was handsome, successful, and absolutely convinced that he deserved the perfect life to match his perfect image. When he married Rachel at 28, she seemed like that perfect piece. Rachel was beautiful, educated, soft-spoken, and came from a respectable middle-class family. She was a pediatric nurse who loved children, and Michael had assumed that meant she'd give him the large family he wanted. For the first 2 years of their marriage, everything seemed fine. They were trying for a baby, and Michael was patient. But when the 3rd year passed with no pregnancy, his patience began wearing thin. "Maybe we should see a doctor," Rachel suggested gently one evening. "Why? There's nothing wrong with me. It must be you." "Michael, it takes 2 people to make a baby. Maybe we should both get checked." "I'm fine, Rachel. I come from a family of 8 children. My father had 12 siblings. There's nothing wrong with the Okonkwo genes. The problem is obviously you." Rachel swallowed the hurt and made an appointment with a fertility specialist. The tests came back showing nothing definitively wrong, but the doctor suggested more examinations, lifestyle changes, possible treatments. Michael refused to participate in any of it. "I don't need tests," he insisted. "I'm not the problem, you are, fix yourself." As the years passed and no pregnancy came, Michael became crueler. He made comments about Rachel's broken body in front of friends and family. He compared her to his cousins' wives, who all had multiple children. He started staying out late, and Rachel knew he was probably having affairs, but she was too heartbroken to confront him. "What's the point of having a wife who can't give me children?" he'd say during arguments. "You're useless to me." Rachel threw herself into her work at the children's hospital, loving other people's children since she couldn't have her own. She cried herself to sleep most nights, wondering what was wrong with her body, why God was punishing her this way. After 7 years of marriage, Michael filed for divorce. "I'm done waiting," he told her coldly. "I want children, and you clearly can't give them to me. I'm 35 years old. I don't have time to waste on a barren woman." The word barren cut deeper than any knife. Rachel signed the divorce papers with shaking hands, feeling like a complete failure. She'd lost her marriage, her home, her dreams of motherhood, all because her body had betrayed her. She moved into a small apartment and tried to rebuild her life, but the shame followed her everywhere. At family gatherings, relatives whispered about poor Rachel who couldn't have children. At the hospital, pregnant patients made her heart ache with longing. She felt broken, incomplete, less than a woman. 1 month after the divorce was finalized, Rachel met someone at the hospital. His name was Dr. James Adebio, a visiting fertility specialist from South Africa who was consulting on a difficult case. They started talking during a lunch break, and Rachel found herself opening up about her failed marriage. "My ex-husband always said I was the problem," she told James. "That I was barren, and he was probably right. 7 years of trying and nothing." James looked at her thoughtfully. "Did you both undergo comprehensive fertility testing?" "I did, multiple times. The results were always inconclusive. Nothing definitively wrong, but nothing definitively right either." "And your husband?" "He refused, said there was nothing wrong with him because his family is very fertile." James shook his head. "That's not how biology works. Male infertility is actually quite common, affecting about 40% of couples who struggle to conceive. Many men don't want to admit it because of the stigma, but it's a medical reality." Rachel felt something shift in her chest. "You think it could have been him?" "I think it's possible. Without testing both partners, you can never know for sure. Rachel, I've seen this pattern many times. A couple struggles with infertility, the man refuses testing because of pride, and the woman carries all the blame. It's unfair and unscientific." "But the doctors told me I had issues." "Did they say you definitely couldn't conceive? Or did they say there were some challenges that could potentially be addressed?" Rachel thought back. "They said the latter. They said there were some factors that might make it harder, but not impossible. They recommended treatments, but Michael refused to participate." "Then you were never given a fair chance. Male factor infertility is just as common as female factor. Sometimes it's both partners. Sometimes it's neither, just bad timing or unexplained issues. But blaming one person without complete testing of both is medical malpractice, in my opinion." For the first time in years, Rachel felt a flicker of something that wasn't shame. It was anger. What if Michael had been the problem all along? What if she'd carried this burden, destroyed her self-worth, lost everything, and it wasn't even her fault? "Is there any way to know?" she asked James. "If he's willing to be tested, yes. But from what you've told me, that seems unlikely." Rachel went home that night with her mind racing. She couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that Michael had been wrong. That she wasn't broken. That the man who'd spent 7 years blaming her, shamming her, destroying her confidence, might have been projecting his own inadequacy onto her. Over the next few months, Rachel focused on healing. She started therapy to work through the trauma of her marriage. She reconnected with friends she'd lost touch with. She threw herself into her work, finding joy in caring for sick children even if they weren't her own. And slowly, she started to rebuild her sense of self-worth. Maybe she wasn't broken. Maybe she was enough, children or not. Then, 18 months after her divorce, Rachel received an unexpected invitation in the mail. It was elegantly designed, printed on expensive cardstock with gold embossing. "You're invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of baby Okonkwo. Join Michael Okonkwo and Sandra Williams for a baby shower as we prepare to welcome our little miracle." Rachel stared at the invitation, her hands trembling. Michael was having a baby, with someone else, just 2 years after divorcing her for being barren. The invitation included a handwritten note at the bottom. "Rachel, I thought you'd want to share in my joy since you know how important fatherhood is to me. Hope to see you there. Michael." The cruelty was breathtaking. He was inviting her to his baby shower, to rub in her face that he'd succeeded in having a child with someone else, to prove that she had been the problem all along. Rachel's therapist advised her not to go. "This is a power play," she said. "He wants to humiliate you. Don't give him that satisfaction." But Rachel couldn't shake a nagging suspicion. Something about the timing felt wrong. Michael had gotten Sandra pregnant within months of starting to date her, apparently. After 7 years of failure with Rachel, he'd succeeded almost immediately with Sandra. Rachel called Dr. James, who'd become a friend over the past year. "James, if a man has fertility issues, could he still potentially father a child with another woman right away?" "It depends on the severity of the issue," James replied. "But generally, if there's a significant male factor problem, it wouldn't just disappear with a new partner. The issue would persist. So if Michael couldn't get me pregnant in 7 years, what's the likelihood he could get Sandra pregnant in a few months?" James was quiet for a moment. Rachel, what are you thinking? I'm thinking something doesn't add up, and I'm thinking maybe I need to know the truth. The only way to know for sure would be genetic testing, but that would require access to Michael's DNA, which you don't have. Rachel looked at the baby shower invitation in her hand. Actually, I might. She made a decision. She would go to the baby shower, not to be humiliated, but to find answers. Because if there was even a chance that Michael had been lying, had blamed her for his own inadequacy, she deserved to know. The baby shower was held at Michael's mansion on a Saturday afternoon. 200 guests filled the expansive garden, which had been decorated in blue and white with the theme, Little Prince. There was a live band, a gourmet buffet, and an elaborate cake shaped like a castle. Sandra, Michael's girlfriend, was visibly pregnant, glowing in a flowing white dress. She was 26, beautiful, and clearly enjoying being the center of attention. Michael stood beside her like a proud peacock, accepting congratulations from guests. When Rachel walked in, wearing a simple but elegant green dress, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations stopped. People stared. Michael's smile widened into something predatory. "Rachel," he called out loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "You actually came, how wonderful." Rachel walked toward him calmly, carrying a gift bag and her purse, which contained the envelope that would change everything. "Of course I came, Michael. You invited me." "I did, didn't I? I thought you'd want to see what a real family looks like." He put his arm around Sandra's shoulders. "Sandra here is giving me what you never could. A child, an heir, proof that I'm a real man." Several guests laughed nervously, others looked uncomfortable. Rachel kept her expression neutral. "Congratulations," she said evenly. "I'm very happy for you both." "Are you, though?" Michael's voice dripped with false sympathy. "It must be so hard being here, being reminded of your failure, your inability to do the one thing women are supposed to do naturally." "Michael, that's enough," Sandra said quietly, looking embarrassed. "No, it's fine," Michael continued, warming to his theme. He was slightly drunk, Rachel realized, and enjoying his moment of triumph. "Rachel knows the truth. She's barren, defective. I wasted 7 years of my life with her, and for what? Nothing, not a single pregnancy, not even a miscarriage, just emptiness." The crowd was completely silent now. Some people looked away in second-hand embarrassment. Others watched with horrified fascination, unable to look away from the public humiliation. Rachel felt the old shame trying to rise up, the familiar feeling of being exposed and worthless. But she pushed it down, because she knew something Michael didn't. "You're right," she said calmly. "We never had a pregnancy in 7 years. That's absolutely true." Michael looked surprised that she'd agreed. "Finally, some honesty from you." "But I've been wondering about something, Michael. In those 7 years, you refused every single request to get tested yourself. Why was that?" His smile faltered slightly. "Because I didn't need testing. There's nothing wrong with me." "How did you know that? Without any medical examination, how could you be certain?" "Because I'm having a baby now. Isn't that proof enough?" Rachel looked at Sandra, who was shifting uncomfortably. "Sandra, can I ask you something? When did you and Michael start dating?" About 10 months ago," Sandra replied, confused. "And you got pregnant right away?" "Within 2 months. It was very fast." "Surprisingly fast," Rachel said. "Almost impossibly fast, given Michael's history." "What are you implying?" Michael demanded, his face reddening. Rachel opened her purse and pulled out the envelope. "I'm not implying anything, Michael. I'm stating facts. And the main fact is this: I know why we couldn't have children, and it wasn't me." She handed the envelope to Sandra, not Michael. "This belongs to you, Sandra. You deserve to know the truth." Sandra opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were several documents, medical records, test results, and a DNA analysis. "What is this?" Sandra whispered. "Those are Michael's medical records from a private clinic," Rachel explained. "Records that show he was tested for fertility 3 months before he filed for divorce from me. Records he kept hidden. Records that show he has severe oligospermia, a condition where sperm count is extremely low, making natural conception nearly impossible. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Michael's face had gone from red to pale. That's private medical information. How did you get that? The same private investigator who also discovered some other interesting information, Rachel continued, her voice steady. Sandra, there's a DNA test in there as well. One I had run using samples collected from Michael's barber and from your baby's genetic screening, which was filed with your insurance company. Sandra's hands were shaking as she looked at the DNA results. What? What does this mean? It means, Rachel said gently, that according to that test, Michael is not the biological father of the baby you're carrying. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Sandra dropped the papers and grabbed Michael's arm. Michael, what is she talking about? Of course you're the father. She's lying, Michael shouted. This is all fabricated. She's trying to ruin my moment because she's jealous. The test was conducted by Gene Lab, one of the most reputable DNA testing facilities in Africa, Rachel said. Everything is documented. Michael, you knew you had fertility issues. You got tested secretly, discovered the truth, and instead of being honest with me or seeking treatment, you blamed me for everything. You let me think I was broken. You destroyed my self-worth. And when you met Sandra, you knew you couldn't father a child with her either. So what did you do? Michael's silence was answer enough. Sandra was crying now. Michael, is this true? Do you have fertility problems? It's not that simple. Answer me, is the medical record real? Michael's shoulders slumped. Yes, I have a low sperm count, but that doesn't mean I can't have children. It just means it's harder. So hard that you failed for 7 years with me, Rachel said. So hard that natural conception is medically improbable without intervention. Sandra, when you got pregnant so quickly, did Michael seem surprised? Sandra was thinking now, going back through her memories. He did, actually. He seemed almost shocked. And then he was very insistent that we keep it quiet for the first trimester. He didn't want to tell anyone. Because he was trying to figure out what happened, Rachel said. And the only logical explanation is that he's not the biological father. This is insane, Michael shouted. Sandra, you know you haven't been with anyone else. Tell them. But Sandra's face had changed. Understanding was dawning along with horror. The fertility doctor, she whispered. What? Michael demanded. 3 months ago, we went to a fertility specialist. You remember? You said we should make sure everything was healthy with the pregnancy. They did some genetic testing, took samples. Sandra's voice trailed off. But that doctor, Dr. Obi, he was very insistent on doing additional procedures. He said it was routine, but I thought it was strange at the time. Rachel had done her homework. Dr. Emmanuel Obi, correct? A fertility specialist who's been under investigation for unethical practices. Michael, did you pay Dr. Obi to artificially inseminate Sandra without her knowledge? The accusation hung in the air like a bomb. Michael's face told them everything they needed to know. You didn't, Sandra breathed. Michael, tell me you didn't. I just wanted a child, Michael exploded. I wanted everyone to see that I could be a father, that I wasn't the problem. I was going to tell you eventually, You artificially inseminated me without my consent. Sandra's voice was rising. You let me believe this baby was naturally conceived. You violated me. It's still our baby. The donor was anonymous, carefully selected. I made sure he had good genetics, good health, and we'll raise it together as ours. You're insane, Sandra said, backing away from him. This is assault. This is criminal. Sandra, please, think about the baby. The baby you forced on me without my permission, using some stranger's sperm, also you could save face. Sandra was sobbing now. How could you do this to me? Rachel stepped forward. Sandra, there are support services for women in your position. What Michael did is illegal in most countries. You have options. Stay out of this, Michael roared at Rachel. This is all your fault. If you'd been able to give me children like a normal woman, none of this would have happened. No, Michael, Rachel said firmly. This happened because you're a coward who would rather destroy other people than face the truth about yourself. You could have gotten treatment for your condition. You could have been honest with me, and we could have explored alternatives together like IVF or adoption. But instead, you chose to blame me, gaslight me, destroy my self-worth, and then assault another woman by artificially inseminating her without consent. That's not my failure. That's yours. The crowd of guests was in complete chaos now. Some were leaving. Others were filming on their phones. Michael's family members were trying to calm Sandra, who was hysterical. Michael himself stood frozen, watching his perfect life implode. "I'll deny everything," he said desperately. "There's no proof of what I did with Dr. Obi. It'll be my word against yours." "Actually," a voice called from the entrance to the garden, "there's quite a bit of proof." Everyone turned to see two police officers walking through the crowd, followed by a man in handcuffs. Dr. Emmanuel Obi. "Dr. Obi has been very cooperative," one of the officers said. "Once we informed him he was facing charges for medical malpractice and assault, he provided detailed records of your arrangement, Mr. Okonkwo, including bank transfers, signed agreements, and video footage from his clinic." Michael's face crumbled. No, this can't be happening." "Michael Okonkwo, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, fraud, and violation of medical ethics laws. You have the right to remain silent." As the officers read Michael his rights and led him away in handcuffs, Rachel stood in the garden surrounded by the ruins of his baby shower. Sandra was being comforted by her mother, who'd arrived and was threatening her own legal action. Guests were filming and gossiping, the story already spreading across social media. Michael's sister, Clara, approached Rachel. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "We all believed him. We all thought you were the problem. We should have questioned his version of events." "You believed what he told you," Rachel said. "That's not your fault. What will you do now?" Rachel looked around at the expensive decorations, the elaborate cake, the Little Prince theme for a baby that Michael would likely never meet. "I'm going to go home," she said. "I'm going to continue living my life. I'm going to keep loving my work, my friends, myself. And I'm going to let go of the last bit of shame I was carrying because now I know the truth. I was never the problem." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Clara. "Tell your brother when he gets out of jail eventually that he should have just been honest from the beginning. Fertility issues are nothing to be ashamed of, but cruelty, manipulation, and assault, those are unforgivable." The story exploded across Lagos within days. News outlets picked it up. Social media erupted with opinions. Michael's hotels suffered a massive boycott. His business partners distanced themselves. His reputation was destroyed far more thoroughly than any divorce could have managed. Sandra terminated the pregnancy after extensive counseling, not wanting to raise a child conceived through such violation. She also filed both criminal and civil charges against Michael, as did Dr. Obi's other victims who came forward once the case became public. Michael eventually served 18 months in prison, paid enormous fines, and lost most of his business empire. His name became synonymous with toxic masculinity and the dangers of unchecked male ego. As for Rachel, she became an unexpected advocate for fertility awareness and women's rights. She spoke at conferences about the importance of comprehensive testing for both partners, about the harm of fertility stigma, about medical consent and women's autonomy. "I spent 7 years thinking I was broken," she told audiences. 7 years internalizing shame that wasn't mine to carry, and I'm not alone. Countless women are blamed for infertility when the issue lies partially or completely with their male partners. The stigma needs to end. The testing needs to be equal, and the shame needs to stop. 2 years after the infamous baby shower, Rachel met someone. His name was David, a kind architect who'd gone through his own struggles with divorce. They bonded over shared experiences of healing and growth. When they decided to try for a family, they both got comprehensive fertility testing done first. The results showed that with some minor medical intervention, pregnancy was possible. Rachel gave birth to a healthy baby girl 18 months later. She named her Joy because that's what she represented, joy after sorrow, hope after despair, truth after lies. And when people asked Rachel about her journey, about the infamous baby shower that had shocked a nation, she would smile and say, "That wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning." Because sometimes the worst moment of your life is actually the moment you're finally set free. Michael, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale. A man so obsessed with image that he destroyed everything real in his life. A man who'd rather commit crimes than admit vulnerability. A man who learned too late that cruelty always comes back to haunt you. The last anyone heard, he was living in a small apartment, working a regular job and attending court-ordered therapy. He'd lost his fortune, his reputation, his freedom for a time, and any chance of the family he'd claimed to want so badly. All because he couldn't admit one simple truth, that he needed help. And because he chose to harm others rather than heal himself. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because this story teaches us that shame used as a weapon always backfires. That medical issues are nothing to hide, but cruelty and deception are unforgivable. That the truth always comes out, usually at the worst possible moment for those who have been lying. Subscribe to Reality Folktales for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and karma. And remember, your fertility status doesn't define your worth. Your inability to have biological children doesn't make you less than, but your willingness to destroy others to hide your own insecurities, that defines your character. And karma is always watching.